What's up everybody, this is BR, and TF2 balancing is certainly interesting. It has caused a wide array of discussion because of the amount of weapons and the amount of playstyles that there are in TF2. So much so that there even was a community attempt to rebalance TF2 in its entirety. This of course being the creators.tf rebalance mod initiative. However, some of the rebalances in that mod were a little eccentric, and while some of them were intriguing and unique, a lot of the rebalance and reworks kind of felt like change for change's sake. Which is different from the kind of approach that I would take, which would be not necessarily making each weapon viable, but giving each weapon its own purpose. And that's why I decided to throw my hat in the ring and create this video, where I'll be giving my own suggestions of rebalances, and hopefully you can decipher my methodology from those rebalances, and hopefully they do turn out well. I'm not going to do a huge array of weapons, I'm only going to do some that I think deserve a better rebalance. Especially one where I think I can have a unique take on how it should be reworked. But if you like this video and like to see me comment on more weapons, make sure to leave a comment down below and even like the video. That way it tells me you guys would like to see a lot more. Anyways, on to the first weapon. So the Natasha is the weapon that inspired me to make this video in the first place. As it is right now, it is one of the most annoying weapons to fight against, though it is still useful for a heavy for its purpose, which I'll get onto later. So I was really happy to hear when the Rebalance mod claimed to have fixed the Natasha, changing its stats and reworking it into something a lot more fun. However, that didn't turn out to be the case. Rather than rework the weapon into something useful, they decided to give it a gimmick, that being a speed boost when you shoot somebody. This really left a lot to be desired, because the Natasha didn't need a gimmick to be relevant. It actually has a purpose as a heavy weapon, and that's to be a counter to scouts and high movement enemies. While the promise of high-tech potential is definitely appealing to us more hardcore players, all it did really was make the Natasha more relevant than it was already, especially when comparing it to stock and the Tomislav. So the way that I want to rework the Natasha is by keeping that spirit of being an anti-scout, anti-high movement weapon, but without the annoying factor of it being slowdown. Rather than having slowdown, it's gonna have a higher knockback value. I think plus 25% more knockback would be appropriate, and it would only affect players who are airborne. This essentially makes the Natasha an area denial weapon, and makes it a lot closer to being a utility. So this weapon would be primarily useful against jumping scouts who are getting up all on your face, who need that close quarters damage in order to kill you. So pushing them back out of their effective range is honestly kind of a good deal. Also, your minigun can be a very protective shield against players who are trying to rocket jump or demo jump towards your medic. Instead of a free bomb to your medic, you can effectively push them back. And personally, since the knockback isn't going to be as powerful as before, I think all of the negative qualities of the Natasha can be instead replaced by a 10% damage penalty. Having players pushed back I think is already a drawback enough. This just makes the Natasha a lot more appealing to those who want the utility of protecting against bombs and high movement characters. You're not going out for kills, yet you're still helping your teammates by pushing back the enemy. And I'm sure that your engineer will definitely appreciate you protecting against a bombing lock and load demo man. The Airstrike is a weapon that many soldier mains don't really look at all. It has a fun little gimmick, but its practicality is kinda lacking. To have the most effect, you kinda need to use the base jumper, but at the same time that just makes you a very easy target. And without the base jumper, the Airstrike is lacking just a little bit. But all I think it needs is one added attribute to make it a force to be reckoned with. And that attribute is increased rocket projectile speed after each rocket fired. Let me explain. So the way that soldier rocket falloff works is that the explosion deals less damage the farther you are from that explosion. It doesn't matter the distance that the rocket traveled. As long as you're close to the explosion caused by the rocket that you fired, it will deal full damage. So for soldier mains, it's very important to sync up rockets. So in order to deal the most burst damage possible, soldier mains sync up their rockets when rocket jumping to make sure they explode around the same time and as near as themselves as possible. The Airstrike has a weakness, however, with its faster firing speed while in the air. This makes it a lot harder to sync up all those rockets in order to deal maximum damage. So by adjusting the rocket projectile speed by, let's say, maybe 10%, it will allow the rockets to explode as closely as possible around the same time once it reaches the target, making soldier bombs a lot more effective. And that's what I think the purpose of the Airstrike can definitely be, an effective bombing tool. If you see a bunch of the enemy around a point, you can rest assured that a bombing Airstrike soldier will be able to clear it out with a good rocket sink. Finally, we have two weapons for the Pyro that I would definitely like to rework. I have never found fighting against a Flog Pyro with a medic up their ass to be quite fun. In fact, it's one of the most annoying combos in TF2. Because you know damn well that in pubs, most players aren't gonna have a way to counter it. Not that it's fair in the first place. But I couldn't really think of a way to change the Flog without changing it completely. So instead of going over my head and trying to change it into something that most people would probably not like anyway, I think nerfing it in this one crucial way will definitely benefit it more than anything else. And that's two nerfs. One, 90% damage reduction against buildings, and two, 25% increased knockback by buildings. This is not only to keep it in line with all the other laser weapons, but also Pyro was never really supposed to be an anti-building class anyways. The Flog not only made Pyro a server cleaning tool, but also a building one as well, which definitely goes against the dynamic of TF2. Regardless though, having an Uber and Pyro Flog in tandem with together, not only clearing out players but buildings, was pretty damn stupid. So now making Flog only viable against players is definitely a place that I think is pretty reasonable for the overall TF2 casual experience. And I think this nerf would be pretty much agreed upon by most players. Add on top of that Sentry knockback and it basically solidifies that the Flog is not meant to clear out buildings. You can still use the Flog and use the powerful combo that is Flog plus Uber, but it isn't going to be as effective as before, or as annoying. And all while not having it be removed from the game as much as I would like it to be. And I also mentioned that another weapon would get that rework, and that's gonna be the Homewrecker. Since the Homewrecker is the dedicated anti-sentry solution for Pyro, I think with removing Flog's effectiveness against sentries, we could give that effectiveness to another weapon. So I would give the Homewrecker a plus 75 knockback resistance against sentries, while equipped. So this doesn't leave Flog entirely out of the question when dealing with sentries, you just have to bring a Homewrecker with you. I think this separation of powers was definitely necessary for Pyro, who was already pretty much good at close quarters damage. And having Uber on top of Pyro, who is mini-critted because of the Flog, made him an unfun behemoth to fight against. And hopefully this change would be for the better. But now I'd like to hear from you. What are some of your changes that you think would benefit TF2's rebalancing? Do you agree with some of my rebalances, or do you think some of them were pretty unnecessary? Or are they just bad ideas overall? Make sure to leave your opinion in the comment section down below. If you found this video interesting, like it if you liked it, dislike it if you disliked it, and if you'd like to see more content just like this, make sure to subscribe, and if you'd like to support me, I am on Patreon, and thank you to all my following patrons. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you later.